Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these militant groups across the world that are militant Islamists are infiltrated by the CIA, the Mossad, ISI from Pakistan and many others. Ahmed al-Shara or Abu Muhammad al-Julani is a CIA agent at the highest caliber. The Iranians, if they wanted nuclear weapons, they would have done it 15, 20 years ago. What happened right now is the Trump administration is saving Iran from Israel, period. If the United States was really against Iran, they could have supported Israel to actually assassinate everybody. The Ummah will continue to stay on its knees because we can't differentiate friend from foe.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to I3 Pulse. Today, is the potential 60-day ceasefire a genuine step to peace, or is Trump trying to save Netanyahu's political career? And did Iran outsmart the world and quietly move one step closer to nuclear weapons? And finally, what's happening in Syria, USA, all the updates? We're talking about it today on I3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. So, Sheikh, we're going to put it up here. Truth Social, truth that Trump put out, I guess. And he said that my representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire, during which we'll work with all parties to end the war. He mentions the Qataris, he mentions the Egyptians. And then he said, I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas takes this deal because it will not get better, it will only get worse. So my question is, why is this happening now? Could this do with maybe Iran weakening Israel? Why is Israel even accepting a 60-day ceasefire now?
So the Trump administration want this Gaza war to end. They want this issue to be done and Trump to look as if he is the hero behind resolving it. And as we know that there's a tension between the Netanyahu government and the right-wing administration that's ruling Israel today, and both Biden and the American administration in general. So that the Trump is pushing for it, and that's why it's moving a little bit. Yeah, and in terms of where they weakened by Iran, yes, definitely they were hit, and we already said basically they were hurt, and now they need lots of billions of dollars to basically come and repair all the damages that happened from the United States. So they're asking the United States to pay them for that. So now when you pay them, you have to get something in return, and the Trump administration wants this war to end, and that's why this is being pushed right now.
So my question is, why is it that Trump is unable to get like an actual full ceasefire? Why does he always push like a 60 days or 30 days and then negotiate afterwards? How come he doesn't have the ability to get that full ceasefire?
Well, I think right now what's happening, especially within Netanyahu has a big legal issue, as you know, and he's been investigated for corruption and many other basically crimes. So Trump is defending him. Trump is saying basically to the Israeli courts not to open this file now because Bibi is supposed to be a hero. Bibi is supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But definitely behind the scenes, there's a negotiation that if Trump supports Netanyahu, not going to jail, because this guy could go to jail for a long, long, long time. If he does that, there has to be something in return. Now, what you need to understand is Netanyahu is just in one individual. Trump doesn't have, for example, crime records across all the Israeli administration. So Netanyahu is between a hard place and a rock right now. And Trump is demanding basically a ceasefire, and the right-wing administration is pushing back. They're always taking those 30 and 60, and they're saying basically only a ceasefire but not end of the war. And that means basically they can restart the war anytime they want, and Trump is pushing for that. So, this is the issue.
Now, do you see? Because right now the updated news is that Hamas, as the time of this recording, they're evaluating and discussing internally about this offer, the 60-day ceasefire. Do you anticipate Hamas accepting that? Because they're not looking to disarm. They're looking to still remain. Do you see them accepting?
Look, I think Hamas basically, I think all what Hamas want right now is the end of war, not just a temporary ceasefire. They will basically negotiate. They will, let go of certain. They already announced that they don't have to be the ruling government in Gaza anymore. They don't have. So maybe they changed their tone a little bit. They said, okay, we want to participate in it, and all that kind of stuff. So as you can see, the security of Gaza, they're like, okay, we want to participate in the security apparatus. They used to basically wholly own it. So they're making concessions. Okay. But this is not good enough for the Israelis. Israelis want Hamas wiped out and Gaza and the Gazans to be ethnically cleansed out of the area. So this is what's happening.
And now Trump puts a threat, right? In this truth, he threatens that it will only get worse, right? So who is he, if Hamas doesn't accept, who is he really warning here? Is he warning Hamas? Is he warning Israel? Is he warning both?
Probably Israel, because the one who's blocking the war from ending is Israel. It's not Netanyahu government. It's not Hamas. Hamas, all they want is just to stop the war. Exchange of prisoners, stop the war. That's all what Hamas is asking for. But the one who's asking for way much than maybe even what Hamas can deliver or what can be done on the ground is the Netanyahu government.
So that explains a lot, Sheikh. I'm going to go back to an earlier question just because there's something I've always wondered myself, right? Is that, Trump has, Israel depends on the U.S. for rebuilding, depends on the U.S. for support, depends on the U.S. even to bomb the choreography bombing of Fordo and the nuclear sites there in Iran. But why has Trump been unable to really force the hand of Israel behind their back and say, just accept this, ceasefire and just end this war?
Well, to be honest, look, at the end of the day, Israel is an independent country, unlike maybe like Egypt or whatever, but these countries are a little bit more, more subservient to the United States. So that's number one. Number two is that the Americans have to be very careful how to push the Israeli state, right? Because it is in the best interest of the United States and the Western world to keep Israel in the Middle East. And you need to understand the state is artificial. That means basically the population came from outside Palestine in the last, 60, 70 years and immigrated to this country. And it's not like they only immigrated 70 years ago. Immigration continued. Right, there's many people who just immigrated last year, the year before. So a good portion of the population is immigrants. They're not even first generation. You understand? They were not born there, so they can easily leave. So the state is fragile. Right, this is settler colonies are very fragile constructs, social constructs. So if the United States pushes enough. And I would say even basically some of these right-wing crazies in Israel say, look, you guys push us enough, we'll just dismantle this whole project. We're here on your behalf, so you guys are going to appease us and do what we want. You see the issue? Like, the Israelis could basically be threatening behind the scenes that, look, you guys push us enough, we will just basically announce that this state is not stable, and we will leave, and we will take a video that we're leaving. And then the whole project could be dismantled. You need to understand this: the Israeli state could literally become history within a day with just people immigrating, leaving it. Right? So the Americans cannot push too much. They cannot. You see what I'm saying? It's in the best interest of the United States and the Western world to keep nurturing the state, and that's why they have to take this beating from it. You understand?
Got it. And as you mentioned, right, even
it's only 7 million people.
Yeah, and when there's attack, immediately you see the airports being full and people trying to leave, people trying to go on boats and escape.
The Israeli government had to actually block Israelis from leaving. They put all the country in house arrest. Do you understand? They were denied the right to travel, which is a human right. A human right, and this is basically the Jewish government of Israel against its Jewish citizens. They actually infringed on their human rights of actually being able to travel and fly. You see what I'm saying?
It's being is like a state that's being like a cloth that's being held by like tissue paper or something so fragile like a spider web, and it just can fall apart anytime. SubhanAllah.
And that's why the Americans cannot push.
Yes,
you understand?
That makes clear.
People are saying otherwise America is so strong it can just demand what it wants and it'll get it happen. Because the Israeli state is so small, the economy is so small, the population is so small, it's just like, and that's why people need to understand. People always say the Israelis or the Zionists or the AIPAC, they control the United States. This is absurdities. We need to stop saying that. The American government, the only reason it shows this weak position or this weak hand against the Israeli government is because it's in their best interest to keep this project, which is a settler colony, intact. All right, people need to understand that. Many leftists and many even like right wing and many people don't understand the situation. They think the Israelis are controlling America. This is absurd. It is denying the facts on the ground. America is the biggest economy in the world. It has a military that's stronger. If you exclude China, it is. If you exclude China, basically the American military is bigger and more stronger than the next 30 countries altogether, if not more. So Israel is a small little. It's not even like it's not in that top maybe list even. Probably it is maybe in the top 15, 20. But you understand, like put all these 30 countries together. The United States. So nobody, no sane mind should claim that the Israelis are controlling the American administration. It's a fallacy. It's a myth. It is wrong. Okay, the American empire is very caring to keeping this project on the ground within the Middle East, even though Jews, Christians, and Muslims lived forever there together with justice and peace. But this is part of, sadly, the British Empire's plot for the Middle East, and the Balfour, the promise of the Balfour Promise, and the and Sykes-Picot after. So this is the history of this region.
Now, moving on to this region as a whole, right? We spoke about and we observed the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, and the U.S. Hitting the nuclear sites, but warning the Iranians and letting them know ahead of time that they're going to hit it. Now, European intelligence sources also mentioned that the enriched uranium has been moved before the attack. You also have that top Iranian nuclear engineering professor and actually one of the former scientists at the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, and he consults at the organization still, Mahmoud Aghamidi. He mentions that Fordow facility was emptied of centrifuges and fissile material 2 months before the war. And he mentions that the sensitive nuclear centrifuges have been dismantled and put in 5 different locations across the country. So my question here is that, looking at understanding that reality, also with the today's news that the president of Iran announced it will cease cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, is there a chance that Iran may covertly develop nuclear weapons?
No. And Trump was very clear about it. I think in this case, Trump was actually saying the truth, right? He's like, look, they will never dare to do so, period. If they do, we'll basically knock him out, right? So the Iranians, if they wanted nuclear weapons, they would have done it 15, 20 years ago, okay? And don't forget, Netanyahu has been warning that they're close to 2 months or 2 years or whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 years ago. The Iranians are not, the Iranians do not have the political will to do so, and they decided not to do so because the Americans told them not to. The Americans basically drew a red line. Now, that being said, the Americans could change that, okay? And the Americans could allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons, okay? Why? Well, for multiple reasons, okay? Number one, Iran is close to the Russian border. This could create a huge problem for Russia. Number two, Iran could basically counterbalance Pakistan, which is a Sunni power with a nuclear arsenal. Number three, basically, nuclear Iran could really scare the hell out of the Gulf countries to make them pay more. So don't forget, basically, there's many. They could even if the Israelis did get a nuclear weapon at one point in time, Iran could basically counterbalance that. Okay. I don't believe Israel has nuclear weapons. People might basically jump up and down about that. They need to think a little bit more that this is not the case. But set that aside. But there could be an American interest in the future, where the Americans would support this. And this is why we see basically that Iran did enrichment until, let's say, 60% uranium, which is pretty close to, and that means the Americans want just like the green light. If they give the green light, this could become a reality. Okay, but what we need to understand is that the Iranians are in full cahoots with the Americans. And I know people basically don't like that to hear that either. But look at what's happening for the last 45 years. You'd understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, and this is reality. Just start watching and see the correlation between American interest, Iranian interest, and how it's unraveling within the region, and you'll understand. So the Iranians will wait for a permission from the Americans to do so. They will not do it. They could have done it, and they didn't do it, and they assured the Americans they're not going to do it. Period.
So on the American-Iranian relationship, when Iran actually, enriched their uranium up to 60%, as you mentioned, how do we know that was with American approval, right? Because someone can say, no, Americans weren't happy about that, and then kind of put the pressure on them now, so Iranians behave. Provide that a little bit of context of just maybe the last couple Trump term 1, just so that people can kind of understand that better.
If the Iranians get close to nuclear weapons, The Americans can come in and basically devastate the whole country. Okay, the Israelis, which have let's say 4% of the American military capability, they created havoc. They killed military leaders. Imagine what the CIA and the Americans could do in Iran. Iran is infiltrated with CIA operatives. You need to understand that. The regime was built from the beginning with CIA support and American support. The one who basically helped Khomeini come back to Iran in 1979 from France and support him while he was in France and let them basically go on an airplane back to Iran, facilitate all that kind of stuff, help basically the revolution to succeed, was Western powers. I mean, he was not living in Russia or China. He was in France.
So, Sheikh, okay, the U.S. could bomb Iran. Understood. But what if Iran went this whole time till now, they went, try to see how far they can go away from the U.S. They did their thing. They realized, okay, U.S. is getting mad now. Let's stop, and then we'll wait for the right time.
No, look, the Trump administration bombing Fordo in such a way, announcing that everything was destroyed, which everybody knows is a lie. The American intelligence community said basically nothing was hit, or very minimal stuff was damaged. But Trump basically this is a policy to defend Iran from the Israelis and to stop the war, and he stopped the war. So whatever we basically have forecasted was 100% correct. So what happened right now is the Trump administration is saving Iran from Israel. Period. If people can see that, it's sad. So this is what happened. And if the United States was really against Iran, they could have supported Israel to actually assassinate everybody. I mean, Trump said, "I know where Khamenei is." They would have killed everybody they can. They would have waged a war that's intense than what happened by 40 times. And to be honest, basically, many people want the Iranian regime to be gone, especially the Gulf countries. Like, although the Gulf countries could have basically put money, they could have. And to be honest, whatever happened was literally the Israelis going unilateral, and the Trump administration coming and saving Iran from the even from the Israeli limited encroachment of the country. Now, can they stop it fully? No. The Israelis could still hit back again.
So, question on that, right? Are we seeing a potential sign of an re-escalation between Israel and Iran? Because right now, when Iran ripped up the whole deal with their cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, the foreign minister of Israel responded and said, Iran has just issued a scandalous announcement about suspending its cooperation with the IAEA. This is a complete renunciation of all of its international nuclear obligation and commitments.
Before that happened, in the last episode, I said that I was asked, what is the possibility of another war? I said, look, give it 1 to 2 year max, and another war will erupt. And one of the Israeli diplomats yesterday, I think, or the day before, said the same thing. Said that we need to plan for the next war with Iran. Max, it'll be 3 years, he says.
My God.
So, like, my forecast was exactly basically what he said. And this is what we're saying. We're saying that the Israelis will continue to monitor. Anytime, basically, they feel Iran is getting a little bit stronger, they come and hit again. So the Iranians have only one way to do this, is to invest in air defense that can neutralize the F-35s and create a very strong defense. They need a dome. They need their own Iron Dome, basically. Otherwise, they're going to continue to be, their sovereignty is going to continue to be trampled by the Israelis, and they're going to, every year or two, the Israelis are going to come in and bomb the hell out of Iran. This will continue to happen, I'm telling you. It will never stop. The United States cannot stop it, because the Israeli military, again, as we said, is independent, has ability to cause some damage, and they will make sure that damage happens.
So, Sheikh, and we'll watch that, right, for the next while. Definitely this, every week we're seeing that analysis being played out in reality. So this is really interesting time. So now going back to Gaza, right, there was an interesting article on Haaretz, which actually spoke about where Avigdor Lieberman, he accused the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of arming criminals in Gaza who are affiliated with ISIS. Netanyahu's response was vague. To defend himself, he said, Israel's acting to defeat Hamas in various and diverse ways upon the recommendation of all heads of the security establishment. So my question is Israel using ISIS proxies to combat Hamas?
100%. Like we've been saying for the last 30 years, that Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these militant groups across the world that are militant Islamists are infiltrated by the CIA, the Mossad, ISI from Pakistan, and many others. So the Israelis always use Mossad agents to as a front to create ISIS groups and so forth. And this answer by Netanyahu actually confirms that, and the accusation by Lieberman confirms that. And by the way, on the ground, we know that they've been sponsoring lots of criminals, and now it seems to be ISIS members, or at least accusations about it, to confront Hamas and to create chaos and insecurity and bloodshed in Gaza, in addition to what they're having. So this is totally believable, and as you can see, there was no official denial from Netanyahu, and that means basically, they know what they're doing.
And it has been almost 2 years, right, since the genocide in Gaza has been happening. Now, why now? Why are they sponsoring these gangs?
Oh, no, they've been doing it for a while. Every time, basically, they're doing it now because the international community is forcing Israel to let in the humanitarian, the humanitarian aid. So they don't want the aid to get to the people, so they sponsor like, okay, we'll let the aid in, but we'll crash the aid inside, no problem. The Israelis are insistent to cause hunger, to kill people slowly inside Gaza at a mass rate of all the 2.5 million people. When we say it's a genocide, this is really a genocide.
And in terms of, the region as a whole, right? Because we're seeing the genocide in Gaza. Also, there are statements people are talking about Jolani and now Ahmed Shara. He's now, maybe there's talks between him and Israel. And just actually yesterday, Trump actually signed and got rid of all of the sanctions against on Syria.
Yes.
And actually was, praising Jolani, right? There, statements like, he was head of tough organizations. He's a pretty tough guy. He's a good guy.
He's a good guy, right? An ex-Al-Qaeda guy is a good guy. If people don't understand that this guy is a CIA agent, it is disaster. The Ummah will continue to stay on its knees because we can't differentiate friend from foe. Ahmed al-Shara or Abu Muhammad al-Jolani is a CIA agent at the highest caliber. Okay, Trump would never meet a single person like him. Basically, Al-Qaeda guy, man, for God's sakes. He's supposed to be a terrorist. But Trump sat with him one-on-one. He's a good guy, huh? He says he's a good guy.
Now, what is this like? Is Trump now warming? Trump in Syria now, is this warming up the stage for normalization?
100%.
And now, what would it mean for Syria to normalize? Like, how would that change?
The Abraham Accords is you can say an invention by Trump and by the U.S. administration to connect the whole region around Israel, from an economic perspective and sociocultural. They want to create within the whole region a full acceptance for the state of Israel, which is rejected by the region, at least by the population of the region, and to create more cultural integration. Now they think, but with this, the American administration thinks, or the strategists in America thinks, architects, they think by doing so, you're gonna create permanency of the Israeli occupying state in the Middle East, right? It will help. Will it help? Definitely. Any strategy will say so. But we need to see. We need to see the governments of the governments in many of these countries, I don't want to say all, do not represent the people, right? So let's see how it goes, basically. But definitely what the Trump administration wants is normalization from Syria, Jordan, every single country around Israel. This is the American strategy for the new Middle East. And that's what's happening. And Ahmed al-Shara was chosen to lead this step in Syria to normalize with Israel and to build a socioeconomic and cultural relationship with Israel.
So drawing this podcast to a close, we know that after Bashar al-Assad was ousted and left and escaped from Syria, that the first thing Israel did was just destroy literally all the airfields and everything. So Syria does not have even an ability to even control their own skies, right?
Correct.
So people would defend and say, okay, fine, I understand what you're saying, Sheikh, but what else could these rulers around Israel do, especially Ahmed al-Shara, these other countries? They're not in a position to really challenge Israel. Now, let's say tomorrow, they wake up, they're sincere, they want to change the country, just a hypothetical, right? Or let's say people who are in the government want to take these nations towards a direction that is better for the Muslim world and Ummah. What can they really realistically do right now?
Yeah, so we already have a video about basically the 10 recommendations for the Syrian government. So one of them was you can do a truce. You can do a truce with Israel for, let's say, 10 years or whatever it is, or 20 years or 15 years, whatever the number is, basically, until you can rebuild your country, right? So you can't, you don't have to accept that the de facto state of affairs, and what the normalization is way beyond that. You see what I'm saying? The Rasul ﷺ, for example, he did a truce with Quraysh. It was a 10-year document and 10-year peace treaty, and that's it. So do a peace treaty with Israel for 10 years, that's fine. Build a strong country. Yeah, you don't have to normalize.
Now, how can a country like that doesn't have control over its skies, and we do recommend everyone to watch that video. We'll put it here. But let's say Egypt, right? Let's say Jordan. Let's say these nations, they're not in a position right now to really challenge Israel like proper. Now, how can they position themselves in a way? Let's say they have 10 years. What can they do?
No, the Egyptian military is way more stronger than the Israelis. So and to be honest, basically, if they're not, let's say for the sake of argument, they're not. What have they been doing for the last 50 years? You see what I'm saying? Are they investing in science and technology and economy and development and so on? No, they're just repressing their own people. So definitely, if they are weaker, it's understandable why, because their job is to just repress their own population. Egypt's 110 million. You cannot compare those two countries to each other. So, if somebody needs to normalize with somebody, Israel needs to normalize with Egypt, not the other way around. What's happening is these countries are trying to normalize with Israel on their own terms. Okay? Normalization should be the other way around.
Well, Sheikh, Jazakumullah khairan. As always, it's good to hear the analysis and really the breakdown on what's really happening around the world today. We'll be watching the next couple of years, Iran and Israel. And then also to see, that video, as Sheikh mentioned, really explains practical, real tips and what strategies that Muslim countries can use to be able to put themselves in a better position. So, Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh. Really enjoyed the time with you. And for everyone, like, comment, share, subscribe. We're going to be here every single week, and we're going to be here even more than every single week. We'll have some live shows. Put your comments and recommendations below, and we'll see you on next episode of i3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum.